Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, the troublesome crowd on my left, if you don't mind calming down for a second. On the right, look at them, all so well behaved. Thank you so much for being with us. It's already been a fascinating and very, very engaging morning. I was delighted to see that we had not just presentations, but actual dialogue between the people on the stage and between the people on stage and in the audience. A very, very important part of what we do here at the Wilson Center. I would like to, before we get into the speeches and the remarks here today, I would like to offer my congratulations to Chris Wilson and the team here at the Mexico Institute for everything they've done, and also to Russ Jones and all of the team over at the BTA. Thank you so much. Congratulations on organizing a fantastic event. Well done. In a moment, we'll be hearing from Governor Ducey with his prepared remarks. And Governor, we are grateful that you were able to step in this morning to our panel discussion. But before we do that, we have some opening remarks from two mayors who are a living example of what is possible at the border. We have with us Mayor Kevin Falconer, Mayor of San Diego, and Presidente Municipal Juan Manuel Gastelum of Tijuana. Thank you very much for being with us. The title, as you know, of this lunchtime conversation is Cities and States Working Across the Border. Mayor Falconer and Presidente Municipal Gastelum are a terrific example of how cities can actually work across the border. And this is something we've known for a long time. We know that, in fact, cooperation at the local level is just as important, if not more so, than cooperation that takes place at the level of federal governments. So we're delighted that you both have taken the time to be with us here today. Thank you so much for coming to the Wilson Center. I'd like to invite you up here to give a few comments to kick us off for this lunch. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Juan Manuel, and this is Kevin. We are delighted to be here, and I have a few remarks that I'm going to give, but just this is a relationship that we are so very, very proud of between San Diego and Tijuana. And I think that those of you who've heard us speak before know that we don't really talk in terms of two cities. We talk in terms of one region, and one region that are united by so many commonalities, whether it's our families, whether it's our culture, whether it's our economy, whether it's our environment. It is a strategic advantage for us to be neighbors, for us to be friends. And when we have the opportunity to tell our story, particularly here in Washington, D.C., we love it because if we're not telling our story, nobody else is. And that is, I said before, a relationship that we are so very, very proud of. We have worked very closely together in the last several years, and in fact, we feel so strongly about it that we recently signed in Tijuana, went right next door, a memorandum of understanding between not just our cities, but all of our department heads. And so our department directors get together on a monthly basis to talk about key issues of concern, whether that's public safety, whether that's environment, whether that's, of course, business. And we are united on growing good quality jobs on both sides of the border. And it's working. I will give you just one example of the success we have. If you take what's happening in Tijuana and you take what's happening in San Diego in the arena of medical device manufacturing, we are the largest hub of medical device combined. We are the largest hub of medical device manufacturing on the planet. Again, that's a strategic advantage. That's a strength. And the more we have the opportunity to grow that strength, to grow that trade as we work in Mexico City, as we work in Washington, D.C. to get federal dollars for increased infrastructure, as we're looking at additional crossings, as we're looking at so many things that benefit both of our cities. And so for us to be here today in the meetings that we've had, I want to thank everybody here at the Wilson Center. It is a relationship, as I said, that is long-standing. And we are very proud in San Diego that the history of our city is in large part our relationship with our friends and our neighbors in Tijuana. And so with that, again, I want to thank all of you for letting us come. I'm Governor, looking forward to hearing you, my friend. But again, this is a strategic partnership that accrues to the benefit of both of our cities. And we love the opportunity for cities to talk about how we continue to lead the way, not just on the local level, but to show what that partnership is. We're the largest land border crossing in North America. As I said before, that is a strength. That is something we are very, very proud of. And with that, I'd love to introduce my friend, my partner. He has a much better title, Presidente Municipal, Juan Manuel Gastelum from Tijuana. Juan Manuel?
Thank you, Kevin. Well, thank you very much. I'll try to do my best with my English. I was born in Tijuana. My parents were born in Tijuana. My sons and daughters are born in Tijuana. And so, fortunately, San Diego has a good mayor. That's Kevin Faulkner. And we have been working together as a clear example of good things can happen. Even though we have a border, we know it's there. There's a wall, we know it's there. There's a legal wall. You know, when you want to go to someone's place, you have to knock on the door. It's there. But we can work together. I mean, we've been doing things, as I don't want to repeat what Kevin just said, but it's true. I want to invite you to come down to San Diego, Tijuana region, the Cali Baja region. We want you to visit us. We want to take you to our Mediterranean, Baja California food. Have wine in Valle de Guadalupe. It's a beautiful places, and we can take advantage of that. And he said, what's this has to do with businesses? What does this invitation has to do with things happening, good things happening at the border? Well, it's part of our way of doing things. We want to have you in Tijuana. We want to have you in San Diego. And well, let me go back and read what I have been writing, what I wrote. I'm sorry. Let's see. Good morning. Well, it's good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Wood, Duncan. Thank you very much. It is great to be here with all of you at this wonderful capital of D.C. and with my friend, Mayor Kevin Faulkner. I appreciate the Wilson Center Mexico Institute for your invitation. Today, we are here together at D.C. because we want to highlight the importance of our binational economy and our community, especially in this critical time, and that it will be reviewing the renegotiation of NAFTA to benefit the two countries. We want to leave here a clear example of we can do it. We can work together. Whatever's going to be renegotiated can be done, as long as us as people, as intelligent people, work on it. We sometimes our federal officials in Mexico, sometimes federal officials in Washington, they've never been in that border. They don't live border. They don't live the way we live down there. It's I have been dealing with the change of hours. I haven't got through with that. And well, we want to be part of it all. We want to be working with you. Tijuana and San Diego have a unique relationship. Over the last few years, Tijuana and San Diego have made great strides to work together with more effectively. A few months ago, as Mayor Faulkner said, we signed an MOU, an agreement between our cities. For what? What was the purpose of that MOU? To work together, to show the people that we can write it down, we can abide by what we signed, and we can show it to the whole world that our communities, that our region, the Cali Baja region, it's a great region to do business. It's a great event. It was a great event and great news for our region. Our relation is stronger than ever. Tijuana and San Diego are proud of our history of collaboration. Though I have been in office for 6 months, Mayor Faulkner and I have been working together for our region. The San Diego-Tijuana border is one of the largest and most important border. Both cities share the culture, tourism, commercial trade, medical services, and many more important services. Our culture and commercial trade at the border crossing are substantial. For example, in 1 month, November 2016, the border had more than 4 million border crossing. By car, or in your car, or walking. The Cali Baja region, mega region, has a privileged geographical location and high competitiveness We generate in foreign investment thousands of jobs which are mainly distributed in the aerospace, medical, and electronical sectors, where many of the companies have operations in Tijuana and headquarters in San Diego. It's amazing. Doing good things, people cross the border to do business in Tijuana, live in San Diego, or vice versa, have businesses in San Diego and live in Tijuana. Our cooperation has been increasing not only in an economic aspect of a commercial. It's not a coincidence that the exportation that came out from the United States travels through Baja and Tijuana, and we have more than 30 million interactions a year that generate 1,000 millions of dollars, enriching our economy, benefiting the people that live in our region. We are divided by borders, yes, but united by our common goal to bring prosperity to our people. Actually, the common goal, yes, that's prosperity to our people by national businesses and generating jobs that create opportunity on both sides of the border. And in cities, we want to help those businesses grow. When jobs are created in Tijuana, jobs are created in San Diego, and vice versa. We have made a lot of progress over the years, but we know there's more work to do. And to do that, we must keep this relationship strong in light of some of the things being said outside our cities. What should be said then? Together, Tijuana and San Diego have brought good jobs to Mexico and the United States. Together, we have made our cities safer, and together we have shown why our region is one of the best places to do business in the world. And together, we have shown why our region is a successful example that building bridges or of understanding are beneficial for our communities. Thank you all, and God bless us all. Thank you, Duncan.
See you soon.
Oh, yes, sir.
Misters Mayors, is it Mr. Mayors or Mrs. Mayor? I don't know how to say it. Mr. Mayor, Señor Presidente Municipal, that's the easier way of saying it. Thank you very much for those welcoming remarks here. I had a slip of the tongue earlier on. I actually said that, of course, the governor would be giving his prepared remarks, but it's not. There's going to be a moderated conversation. And the man who will be holding that conversation with the governor is a very dear friend of the Mexico Institute, a member of our advisory board, Ambassador James Jones, who is also co-chairman and CEO of Manat Jones Global Strategies. For those of you who have a copy of the list of biographies here, it's a long and distinguished bio here. But we are particularly indebted to Ambassador Jones, not just for his service to the United States, his help here at the Mexico Institute, but of course Ambassador Jones was U.S. Ambassador to Mexico between 1993 and 1997. This is a man who understands why NAFTA matters. He understands why the economic relationship with Mexico matters. And he also understands the need to constantly come back and to remind us all about why it matters and how we can actually spread the message. So I'd like to invite Ambassador Jones to come up here, and also Governor Ducey. Thank you so much for being with us. I introduced you this morning, but once again, many, many thanks for your support. Before we kick off the conversation, let me please just give one more thank you, and that is, of course, to our sponsors, to Werner Enterprises, to Constellation Brands, Corona Extra, the Ambassador Bridge, Pro Mexico, Manat Jones, Fresh Produce, and Delphi, all of whom, of course, understand the vitality of this relationship. Thanks for your support. Jim.
Well, thank you very much, Duncan. It's good to be here at this conference. The Mexico Institute has done and is doing so many good things in our relationship, and I'm just very pleased to be a part of it. A couple of years ago, I usually go to Mexico on average once a month for client-related issues, and I was down there and I called a friend of mine, Carlos Slim, and we chat from time to time, and he said, "What are you doing for dinner tonight?" "I'm hosting the governor of Arizona and their delegation." And I thought, well, I have another dinner, but I'll come by for dessert. And I really wasn't looking forward to this with the reputation that Arizona had done in the last few years. And so we sat next to each other, And it was absolutely delightful conversation. He's not an ideologue. He is someone who sees issues and tries to solve them, and he works with others to get that done. So I was, as a Democrat, thinking this is hard to do, but I could support a Republican here. And I've been impressed with all he's done since then. The first question, I guess, Governor, would be, you did inherit a relationship that had been torn between Arizona and Mexico. How did you turn that around, and what advice would you give on that?
So again, I just want to say it's an honor to be here at the Wilson Center. And Ambassador, I want to say thank you for the kind words. Thank you for coming by that dinner. And you know, as somebody who entered politics from the outside, as a business person, I really naturally brought that approach to this relationship with Mexico. And Mexico was our #1 trading partner. It wasn't even close. It was ×4. And you actually refreshed my memory of a story that helped us in this setting. There were some local business people that after my election had been working for some time to get Carlos Slim to come to Phoenix to address the business community. And when you're the governor and Carlos Slim is coming to town, they say, would you like to greet Mr. Slim? And I said, sure, I would love to. And I was the first one in the room, and he came in, and he said to me, I'm pessimistic. And I said, well, I don't want you to be pessimistic. I'm the new guy. I want you to be optimistic. And he shook my hand, and he said, I'm going to be optimistic. And he went out, he gave a great speech. He invited me down to visit Mexico City. We put a delegation together. I see Glenn Hammer here and Leah Marquez Peterson of our business community, our academic community, and government leaders. And it just got the fresh start off to a good start. And the idea was, let's turn the page. You know, we had enjoyed an excellent relationship for decades, and you were a part of that with former Governor Fife Symington. So the relationships, the affections, the trust was all there laying latent. And the hospitality, the welcome that we received, and the invitation to start anew was on behalf of the Mexican federal government and what we've experienced since then. So we see it as a real positive and something that we want to build on.
In that connection, a couple of weeks ago, I think you had a summit, a meeting of the Arizona-Mexico Commission, which goes back many years and has been a real valuable thing. What did you accomplish at the summit a couple of weeks ago?
So the summit was a record attendance summit. We had over 600 people in attendance. It was a standing room only, sold out event. And throughout the 28 months of the administration, each successive summit has been more positive or better attended than the last. And if you think of the last 28 months politically, you could probably imagine that this would be a challenge. But because the relationship started upon election, it started upon the inauguration of Claudia Pavlovich, and mayors, to see the relationship that you have. The only one that I wish were here today would be Governor Pavlovich, because we could have much the same conversation, which I think any government leader can, with their, cross-border peer in terms of building a relationship. So regardless of the circumstance, regardless of what some others in the state may think, you can take charge of your realm. This last one, we had a fun thing to work on. It was really a memorandum of understanding for a tourism trade and cruise ships that are going to be coming to Puerto Penasco, which in Arizona we call Rocky Point. But we bring from law enforcement to the Commerce Authority to transportation officials to agriculture officials, every peer official in each government comes to these summits, along with business leaders, which I think in trade is really where the solution is to provide prosperity on both sides of the borders, but also education leaders. And we just build the relationship more. We'll focus on an agenda of what needs to get done. And there is no shortage of opportunities around economic growth and development. And we've had some successes along the way, too, and real tangible results and victories that have been able to communicate to the people of Arizona why this relationship is important.
The politics and economics get intertwined in this relationship, and it's going to be more so in the coming months and weeks as the negotiations on NAFTA, to update NAFTA, occur. One of the things that I found when I went to Mexico the first time was that I really had responsibility in 3 different countries: Mexico, the United States, and the border. And they were distinct entities in many ways. How do you get the border relationship and thinking transferred into other parts of the United States to influence and moderate the political rhetoric and thinking that's going on in other areas?
Well, I think that's an important point that you bring up, because it's incumbent as a leader to make sure that you're using the proper tone and communicating in the right way. And on that first visit, I was able to visit with Ambassador Anthony Wayne, and he was part of that hospitality and welcoming that opened the door. And I handled the visit as the leader or the chief executive of the state of Arizona. So in that capacity, we can focus on trade, on the education exchange, on all the positives that we had to deliver, to lay groundwork for. And we also addressed the very real political reality of border security. But we did it in a way where we're concerned, of course, in Arizona with the drug cartels, with human trafficking, and to our great good fortune, Governor Claudia Pavlovich has those same concerns. So we were able to put law enforcement together. So when you said 3 countries in terms of the United States, Mexico, and the border, I looked at it as 3 separate issue sets. One is economic growth and development, and this is something that a governor can affect. The other is public safety, and this is something that a governor can affect with proper communication and coordination. And then the third part of it is immigration. And immigration is a federal issue, but we can advocate for what we think is good policy. And that worked not only in the state of Arizona, that works, I think, not only politically in terms of a winning message, but it allows you to put good policies forward and to amplify them.
On the immigration issue, I guess Mexico is the largest part of Arizona's economy, with roughly 100,000 jobs, according to a Wilson Center study, dependent upon trade with Mexico. How do you deal with the immigration and the economics? How do you separate that and deal with them?
Well, I don't know that you can separate them. I think that they come together, don't they? Arizona is a state that over the last several decades has just grown tremendously. We'll have over 7 million people in the state of Arizona at the close of this decade. We are currently, Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in the United States, and there's 3,144 counties in the U.S. Phoenix is the fastest growing city. We've seen our economy grow and expand because of this. So what I knew as an Arizonan, someone who came there when I was 18 years old, is that Arizona is very welcoming and inviting, and a place where people come from all over the country and the world to live. And that has been a net benefit for our economic development, job creation, tax base, revenues that we have to provide for education and universities. And I think as the chief executive, you have to make that case as to why growth can be both good and responsible, and how it results in prosperity for your citizens. I think anybody here who's a business person knows that you have a lot better holiday party when your revenues are growing than when they're contracting. And our revenues are growing, and it's because people love our state and they're moving to our state.
And you're doing a lot of cross-border economic activity, and as the 2 mayors said it's very integrated in Tijuana, San Diego. Do you get a political backlash from some people in Arizona, some of your constituents, who think that we're moving too many jobs to Mexico and not keeping enough in Arizona? And
I've
how
never
do you deal with that?
Well, that's a great question. I want to tell you one success story that we had. There's a company called Lucid Motors Company out of Northern California. They're an electric car manufacturer, cutting edge. It's the folks that built Tesla. It's the second generation of a new startup company, highly capitalized, looking in 60 different markets as to where they would build their electric car manufacturing plant, competition amongst 13 different states. And as a governor, I'm often more comfortable talking to business people than I am state legislators. So I delegate out the legislative meetings, and I try to attend all the economic development meetings. And on the third meeting I had with their chief executive, his question to me was, our decision is going to be made on who has the best relationship with Mexico. How is your relationship with Mexico? Now, I looked at this as a layup, you know, a softball. But what I challenged them was to find out for themselves. So they went to Sonora. They visited with Governor Pavlovich's administration. And several weeks later, we conducted the ribbon cutting with all of the media invited on the front steps of the Arizona State Capitol in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. So if there's a political backlash, it's been a positive one.
This audience is composed of business leaders, community leaders. As we go into the NAFTA negotiations, what advice would you give to them to help influence the right outcome on those negotiations?
Well, I think a great question, and I think like any public policy debate, is to be vocal, to be an advocate, and to provide real-world stories about how this relationship and an improvement in this relationship, and I think that really is the opportunity in this discussion, is for an improvement in our economy. I think so much, and this is just an instinct. I don't have any evidence of this except anecdotally, is that the issue in the last election wasn't trade. It was a tepid economy. It was jobs that have not come back. And I don't think we're going to necessarily get the jobs that went away 20 and 30 years ago, but we all know the difference between a growing, vibrant, dynamic economy and an economy that's barely in the positive territory. Mexico, when we have had that vibrant, growing economy, has been a part of that, and so is North American free trade. And I think that's the opportunity in this negotiation, is that we have a 2.0 situation, a new and improved, a next generation, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to need all folks at the table advocating on behalf. But I think that's something like much of what I've experienced in my relationship with Mexico is these are not partisan issues. These are good policy issues.
Wouldn't you say that it's very important for local leaders to communicate with members of Congress on the very views you're talking about? Otherwise, you're going to have a different viewpoint.
I think it's critical, Ambassador. And when I say local leaders, I'm not just talking about elected leaders. I'm talking about civic leaders and specifically business leaders to be vocal in this communication, because this is not a debate where you want the loudest voice at the table to be the winner. You want the one that's making the best case, the most reasoned case.
Let me ask one other question, which is not exactly related to trade activity at the border. And then we'll throw it open for some questions from the audience, if that's agreeable. Sure. Last week, you declared a statewide health emergency to address the opioid overdose deaths in Arizona. What are you doing to meet that challenge?
So opioids are an emergency. It's a public health emergency in the state of Arizona and other places in the United States, and we're going to treat it as such. And I think it's part of the reason we've been able to have success on some of the tougher border discussions, because you know, what's happening at the border, of course, are the positive things of trade and transit and tourism, but we also have drug traffickers and human trafficking. The opioid issue is something that's a phenomenon from these miracle drugs that have been created. We have addiction at a record rate. We lost 790 Arizonans in this last year. So part of it, of course, is treatment. It's also prevention, to stop this before it ever starts with someone. Once they are addicted and then are removed from this product, oftentimes they turn to heroin, and this is an issue with the drug cartels. We're doing a number of things. We're limiting the first fill of opioids for patients that are on government assistance. We are monitoring the prescription drug database so that we can avoid doctor shopping. We're working with local retail distributors so that people can return their opioids when they don't need them or they've been overprescribed. We're also working with the medical community so the doctors have proper education on the right way to dispense this pain medication. But this is an issue. I think there are more layers to the onion here. Like you said, Ambassador, we have declared an emergency in the state of Arizona. You've seen some other states take dramatic action, and it's something we'll have to continue to deal with.
Okay, the floor is open. If someone has a question, just raise your hand. We'll take one more shot at that after I ask this question. Hey, Ambassador Wayne.
Governor, when you came down to visit, you had representatives from both of your universities, I think, with you, or both the big ones, and that relationship has continued to prosper. Maybe you could say a little bit about that, because that's another aspect of the interaction between the two countries. It's very important, especially as we get into this next generation of technology, as you were talking about, and jobs are changing and opportunities are changing.
Yes, great memory, Ambassador Wayne, and we had a University of Arizona with us, and we met with the large national university in Mexico City as well for the cross border exchanges that we can have around the engineering schools, language opportunities. Michael Crow at Arizona State University has the largest public university in the country, was also named the most innovative university in the country, beating out MIT and Stanford, and has a tremendous international, diverse community on campus. And I possibly because of my background, I always think of the trade opportunities first, and I think those are the ones that are most immediate in this changing world that we have. But the long-term way to help solve and ensure and guarantee these relationships is with student exchange. You know, it's about the people, and it's about the relationships. And in Arizona, we already enjoy so many of these relationships over the course of time. It's to ensure that they are there. And we have 3 public universities, along with several private universities, that would love to participate in this and participate in even a higher level. I think that's a takeaway that we can bring back to Arizona to challenge these presidents.
Is there another question from the floor? Pat? Oh.
So you made reference, and there's been other references throughout the conference today about USTR's notice on renegotiation of NAFTA, and people making themselves known. There was a very brief 15-day window for submitting written comments. Have the states submitted comments, the border states, to your awareness? Has the state of Arizona submitted comments concerning that?
Elected leaders and state leaders, I mean, the state doesn't, I would speak on behalf of the state. I've been outspoken on this. I had a situation after the election cycle. My name wasn't on a ballot in 2016, but before the swearing in, where I was down with the Phoenix Suns in Mexico City for a couple of games that we played at the magnificent arena that you have there, and met with many of the business leaders. And they wanted to know what my position was going to be on trade and this relationship. So when I'm out doing this, it's not only in a formal setting at the Wilson Center, but we're also advocating with our senators, with the Congress, and of course the administration as well. So yes, you can count on Arizona, and I don't want to speak for other governors, but there are 33 other states that enjoy a top 3 trade relationship with the nation of Mexico. But you can count on Arizona to not only have a voice here, but to have a seat at the table as this is decided.
In response to her question also, I think it would be very well if you can help ignite the National Governors Association. They're going to be responsible for the redistricting in a couple of years, and I think they are listened to quite well by members of Congress, so whatever they can do would be very helpful. Pat Ottensmeyer? Oh, right here.
You actually just sort of addressed my, not really a question, but a request, and that is your role with the National Governors Association. We had the opportunity, Ambassador Jones and I both participate on a group called the U.S.-Mexico CEO Dialogue, and the leader of the NGA was at the meeting last week, Governor McAuliffe from Virginia, and we asked and challenged him to get the Governors Association, realizing you're not going to get all 50, but get the Governors Association to speak up and let the administration, the Congress, the people who are going to be responsible for the outcome, the new policies with respect to NAFTA and our relationship with Mexico, to speak up and let their interests known. You obviously get it, so you're in a great position to take a leadership role there. So I know you have your convention coming up in July. We did challenge Governor McAuliffe to, if you can't get 50, get 30, get 20. There were 18 U.S. senators that as soon as Ambassador Lighthizer took his hand off the Bible, there was a letter in his palm. And I was one of 32 U.S. CEOs that signed a letter to the president. And I agree with you. I think just making that message, that outreach to anyone and everyone that you think is going to be influential in the process is important right now. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion, and it's something that we're definitely going to do. I mean, Governor Raimondo is going to host us next month in Providence. I have found the National Governors Association to be a very productive organization since I came into office. We typically deal with the issues that are most topical at the moment, and this will be topical at that time. Not only do we have a relationship with the governor of Sonora, but also the governor of Sinaloa. And I think this idea of relationships among the United States governors with the Mexican governors and with our counterparts in Canada is important, and building this strong North American trade alliance is really the opportunity here to come through these turbulent times. So yes, that's something we're going to do, and we think Arizona has the story to tell in many ways. We've been a model state, and we want to share that with people.
Any other questions? Governor, would you like to make closing remarks?
I just want to say again, thank you, Duncan and Chris, for having me here. I'm honored to be able to talk about what we're doing in the state of Arizona. I don't think there's any magic here. It's a focus on what's most important for your citizens, for your state's economy, and then doing the work. The groundwork has been laid. There's so many relationships that predate elected leaders, and the business leaders and academic leaders have created over the years, and then of course the good people in the diplomatic roles. So to dig in, to encourage the folks back home to do that, and that's how we'll solve these problems, is through conversation and through a plan of action, and then proper execution. And what you're doing here at the Wilson Center on behalf of that and on behalf of free trade is something that Arizona wants to be a part of. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Governor, Ambassador. That was a terrific conversation. I would just like to add my own, trying to think of 2 cents is what you say in this country. I was going to say 2 pennies, but I guess that would work as well. Here at the Mexico Institute, we're constantly looking for examples to highlight the deeply integrated nature of the relationship. And for a long time, we've talked about the fact that there are many companies that produce goods in Mexico but do the R&D here in the United States. And those are good jobs. I mean, those are jobs which really are well paid, they're cutting edge, they require an advanced skill set. But I came across an example recently where, in fact, the reverse happens, and it takes place in Arizona. And that is the Intel plant just outside of Phoenix, where 1,000 people are employed. And a lot of the design, the R&D for that plant takes place at the Guadalajara Design Center in the state of Jalisco. That is something which I think is an extraordinary example of how deeply integrated the two economies are, and how traditionally when we think of an integrated production platform between the two countries, we think of parts and goods going back and forth and gradually turning into the finished product. This is an example of where ideas and innovation are flowing back and forth between the two economies. And that, if we're going to face the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution of automation, we need a lot more of that. And so I think if we can highlight these examples, and Arizona, thank you very much for doing that and giving a great example like that, then I think we'll go a long way towards actually being competitive and successful in the future. We have about 20 minutes before our next panel kicks off at 1:40. So I would encourage you to either linger and continue your conversations, take a little walk in the delightful cool breezes of Washington today, or find a way to relax and check your email, because I know that nobody looked at their phone during this session. I was checking around. Thank you very much to all of you for being here, and we'll see you at the next session. Cheers.